Hey, P. Remter here with you today. I've been filming on the front porch the other day, and some of the neighbors look at me kind of funny, so I thought I'd better come to the back porch. But today I'm going to shed the glasses, and I'm going to go back to the original outfit that I used to wear when I first started P. Remter, and that's this, with the cheese head. See, with the edges, the rim, because we were stressing perimeter and area at the time. But today I'm going to do a little lesson that's not necessarily for the kids. It will help the kids, especially if they're doing order of operations and some things like that. But this one is for you parents, because with self-isolation, with social distancing, quarantining, whatever you want to call it, hopefully you're all doing this and staying at home. And I'm sure that you're like most of us. You're getting on social media and you're being inundated and you're seeing things like this. Okay, I get messages all the time, Bob White, help, with a problem like this. Well, first off, let me tell you that in these things, there's usually a trick somewhere. They're trying to trick you as well as test your math ability. For instance, in this one, you start going through here and you see the shoes, and you figure out real quick that the shoes are worth 10. And then you see the guys, and there's two guys and a pair of shoes, and that equals 20. So you know this is 10, so that's got to be 5 and 5. Okay. And then you see something like the laces or whatever these things are called, and you see that you got a pair and a pair and a guy, and the guy's worth 5. So that's got to be worth 4, and 4 would be 8. So those have to be 4. So then they give you something like this, and this is where people get confused. Well, first off, they've gone to one pair of laces, but if you look even closer, you see that in this picture, the guy's wearing shoes, the guy's holding laces, and in this case, he's even got something around his wrist. So I always say that really you can't work these problems because you don't have enough information to go with them. But most people have come up with the idea that, these laces are worth 2 since there were 4 of these. And so you come up with problems that you're starting to work. And so you substitute in one pair of shoes must be 5, or one shoe must be 5. One guy with the shoes, with the laces and the shoes and everything else, I think they get that he's worth 14 or something like that. And then this lace is worth 2. So they get into the problem of what to do with it and all that, or maybe, yeah. And so people are coming up with all kinds of weird answers on this thing. First off, let's talk about the math part of it. Let's talk about order of operations. I used to always give my kids a problem to start with that looks something like this. 7 plus 4 minus 3 plus 2. Now, a lot of people work it out. 7 plus 4 is 11. 3 plus 2 is 5. 11 minus 5 is 6. Everybody agree with that? Well, unfortunately, that is the wrong answer. The wrong answer. You don't do addition and then subtraction. The order of operations says you do addition and subtraction, and you do it in order from left to right. So 7 plus 4 is 11, but then you should subtract the 3 plus 2. So what you have is 11 minus 3 plus 2, and you go from left to right. 11 minus 3 is 8, and 8 plus 2 is 10. So the correct answer to that one is 10. Well, keep that in mind. You work from left to right. But then they throw something like this at you. You have multiplication in there and addition. 4 plus 2 times 3. Well, a lot of you are familiar with the old saying, my dear Aunt Sally. That simply means multiply, divide, add, subtract. I never used my dear Aunt Sally. I don't even know if I was taught my dear Aunt Sally. But that's what a lot of people use. Just remember, this does not mean you do them in order from left to right. I think there should be a comma in here, if anything. My dear Aunt Sally, because you do the multiplying and dividing from left to right. and then you do the addition and subtraction, again, from left to right. So in this problem, you see multiplication, so you would do the multiplication first. 2 times 3 is 6, and then you would add the 4. 4 plus 6 is 10. So that one gives you 10. But then you get to problems like this, where you have divide and multiply. Again, see, if you're going with just my dear Aunt Sally, you think you multiply first. And this would give you 8, and you'd say 8 divided by 8 is 1. But that's not correct. You do these in order from left to right. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. And really, a better saying is, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. See, the first one is parentheses. So let's take a problem like this first one that we had. If my paper doesn't blow away, the wind picked up all of a sudden. Okay. If we have this first one, we could change this problem completely up if we did something like this. If we said 4 minus 3. Well, that's 1 because you work in parentheses first. So you get 7 plus 1 plus 8. Well, you still get 10, Bob. Yeah, but if you did something like this, where you actually said the 3 plus 2, then you would have 7 plus 4 is 11, minus 5, there's your 6. Or you may even have 2 sets of parentheses. So you would have 7 plus 4 is 11, minus 3 plus 2. So parentheses can change a lot of things. For instance, on this problem, if we put the parentheses here, then a lot of you would have been right. You would have added first. 6 times 3 is 18. So watch what you're doing, but especially on these math problems, on these Facebook problems, they're always trying to trick you. So find the trick first. Then once you find the trick, go through and work it out. And I think this might have been 19, if I'm remembering correctly. I may be wrong, but anyway, you would multiply first. 19 times 2 is 38, and then you add the 5, and so the best answer I've seen on this one is 43. But we're not trying to work the problem. First off, find the trick that they've thrown in there, and then remember your order of operations. Most of them just include my dear Aunt Sally, but if you remember, that means multiply, divide, then you do the adding and subtracting. The last thing you should ever do is add and subtract unless it's in parentheses. So keep in mind, my dear Aunt Sally, or please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, and hopefully this will help your parents keep your sanity as we're going through all this social distancing. You're homeschooling your kids. So if you got kids that you can work on some problems like this, let them help you. Let them learn their order of operations as they're doing it. Again, this has been Pre-Remitter, and I hope you've enjoyed today's Mad Math Moments.